Guys, we'll study about the thalamus. Thalamus is a very important topic to be noted. So thalamus is a egg-shaped nuclear structure which is present above the hypothalamus. Thalamus is a egg-shaped nuclear structure. As you can see in the diagram, it looks similar to the egg shape. So it is present on the top of the brainstem. You know the brainstem structures, midbrain, medulla oblongata, as well as the pons. So it is present on the top of the brainstem. It is also called as sensory relay station. You know the relay station. It means if there are two areas in the when you study the ascending tracts and descending tracts, you can see the thalamus, which acts as a relay station to convey information to the sensory cortex area. So there are two thalamus on a brain, one on the left side, one on the right side. So anterior to thalamus, third ventricle is present of the brain. Posterior to thalamus, you can see the corpora quadrigemina present. So you can see the two egg-shaped thalamus. You can see the brainstem. It is present on the top of the brainstem. If you enlarge this structure, you can see three parts of the thalamus. The front part is called as anterior part. There is a lateral part and there is a medial part. So all these three parts are differentiated. They are differentiated by a line called as intermedullary laminae. So intermedullary laminae is the one which separates the anterior part, lateral part, as well as the medial part. So this was about the introduction of the thalamus. Thalamus is a egg-shaped nuclear structure present on the top of the brainstem. It is a sensory relay station. There are two thalamus on a brain. Anterior to thalamus there is third ventricle. Posterior to thalamus there is corpora quadrigemina. So two thalamus left side, one on the right side, another one. So in the thalamus, if you just make it big, and you can see the structures, three parts of it: anterior part, lateral part, medial part. And the line which differentiates all these three parts is called as intermedullary lamellae. So now we'll see the nucleus present in this thalamus, the main important nucleus present in this thalamus. So here we go. These are some of the important nuclear structure present in the thalamus. So this is the anterior side. The pink line is the intermedullary laminae. Intermedullary laminae. On the anterior side, you can see the anterior nucleus. On the medial side, you can see mediodorsal or dorsomedial nucleus present on the medial side. And on the lateral side, you can see many different nucleus here. So on the the green nucleus is called as ventral anterior nucleus. This one, brown one, is called as ventrolateral nucleus. Then in this ventroposterior nucleus, you can see two: ventroposterior lateral nucleus as well as ventroposterior medial nucleus. So you can see ventrolateral, ventroanterior, ventroposterior. Ventrolateral, ventroanterior, ventroposterior. In ventroposterior, there are two types: ventral posterior medial nucleus (VPM) and VPL, that is ventroposterior lateral nucleus. You can also see the lateral posterior nucleus here. You can also see the lateral posterior nucleus. You can see the yellow bigger one, pulvinar nucleus, and there are two geniculate body. One is lateral geniculate body as well as a medial geniculate body. So this was about the nucleus present in the thalamus. You have to know these nucleus so that you can understand where is the pathways getting connected. You have seen this ventroposterior lateral nucleus in the ascending cortex or descending cortex pathway. So ascending pathway, you have seen it in the thalamus. It usually relays in the ventral posterior lateral nucleus, VPL nucleus of thalamus. So I have made this nucleus a chart so that you can remember it in a easier way. So this is the chart. In the thalamus, you have three nucleus: anterior nucleus, medial nucleus, and lateral nucleus. Three parts: anterior nucleus, medial nucleus, lateral nucleus. In the anterior part, you have anterior nucleus. In the medial part, you have medial dorsal nucleus or dorsomedial nucleus. Both are the same thing. So medial dorsal nucleus. After that, in lateral, you have two main groups: lateral group as well as ventral group. Lateral group and ventral group. In lateral group, there are three nucleus: lateral dorsal or lateral anterior. Same, dorsal and anterior means the same. Lateral anterior nucleus, lateral posterior nucleus, and pulvinar nucleus. If you see in the ventral group, we have three nucleus: ventral anterior nucleus, ventrolateral nucleus, and ventroposterior nucleus. Further, the ventral posterior nucleus is divided into two parts: ventroposterior medial nucleus and ventroposterior lateral nucleus. This was a classification of thalamus. In thalamus, there are three main classification: anterior, medial, lateral. Anterior, it is having anterior nucleus. Medial side, it is having medial dorsal nucleus, and on the lateral side, it is having two groups: lateral group and ventral group. In lateral group, it is having three nucleus, that is lateral dorsal nucleus, lateral posterior nucleus and pulvinar nucleus. On the ventral group it has ventral anterior nucleus, ventral lateral nucleus and ventral posterior nucleus. In ventral posterior further they have two nucleus, that is ventro-posterior medial nucleus and ventro-posterior lateral nucleus. Now we look on the connections of the thalamus. Very important thing, you have to know the connections of the thalamus. So this is about the connection of the thalamus. You can see the thalamus here, the blue color structure. This is the thalamus. Below thalamus there is hypothalamus. Hypothalamus is present below the thalamus. After that, below the hypothalamus you can see the two geniculate bodies, that is medial and lateral geniculate bodies. Thalamus, hypothalamus, medial and lateral geniculate bodies. Then for a human being, what are the things that is important? Olfaction, hearing, vision, taste. Olfaction, hearing, vision, taste is important. First you have to write the olfactory impulse, then write the hearing, then write the vision. Okay, after this, remember this as there was a student who was studying in VIT college. VIT student. So VIT, visual impulse taste. VIT, visual impulse taste. What was he studying? He was a student. So through STT, solitary-thalamic student. In the VIT college he was a student. Visual impulse taste through solitary-thalamic tract. So this was about this much. For a human being there is requirement of olfactory impulse, hearing, vision. The student was studying in VIT, visual impulse taste through student means solitary-thalamic tract. Then what happens in the sense, he did MS in Australia. He did MS in Australia. So to remember MS, you have medial lemniscus. S is for spinothalamic tract. Australia, trigeminothalamic tract. So VIT student, after that he went to do MS in Australia. MS means medial lemniscus. And S means spinothalamic tract, ST tract. And to do to study further like education, he went to Australia. Tree is for trigeminothalamic tract. So this much I guess you have understood. So to remember this one, you have to remember it as CGPA. To do all these things, first you have to get good CGPA in their boards, 10th standard. I mean in 10th standard boards and 12th standard boards, you have to get good result so that he can do he can study in VIT or he can go further anywhere. So C stands for caudate nucleus, G stands for globus pallidus, P stands for putamen. These are the nucleus of the basal ganglia. You know this. So basal ganglia, these are the nucleus of the basal ganglia. In the globus pallidus, these two structures are the globus pallidus. Globus pallidus has two segments. The outer segment is called as external segment. The internal segment, the inner part is called as internal segment. The outermost one is called as putamen. After that you can see globus pallidus. In globus pallidus, it is having two segments, external segment, internal segment. This is the caudate nucleus. So this is the cerebral cortex. All the connections will be starting from the cerebral cortex. So I'll be explaining this diagram once again. So this is the cerebral cortex. You can see the CGPA. You have to get a good CGPA first. So C stands for caudate nucleus, P stands for putamen, G stands for globus pallidus. Globus pallidus has two segments, external segment, internal segment. Then remember the part cerebellum. There is a connection from cerebellum also. Then what happens for human being? Three things are important: olfaction, hearing, vision. Taste is also important. Olfaction, hearing, vision and taste is important. So olfactory impulse which will travel to the amygdaloid complex to reach thalamus. This is thalamus, this is hypothalamus, and there are two nucleus called as medial and lateral geniculate nucleus. Hearing, vision is important. Reticular formation is also taking place. VIT student. So V stands for visual impulse. T stands for taste through STT student. STT means solitary-thalamic tract. So then he'll go to study MS in Australia. So MS means medial lemniscus. S stands for spinothalamic tract. He'll do in Austria. Tree means trigeminothalamic tract. This was about the connection about the thalamus. Now we'll study about the functions of the thalamus. So these are some of the functions of the thalamus, very important one. So first one, it acts as a relay station for all the somatic sensor. As I've said in the ascending pathway, it is one of the important relay station for all the somatic structures. It acts as a relay station for the special sensation also, eyes, like all the things like hearing, olfactory, all the things, but except olfaction. So it is a relay station for special senses for everything except olfaction. It is also plays a very important important role in arousal awake mechanism, also sleep wake cycle. It tries to keep the individual awake, like alert state. It also helps in sensing the various sensation, pain, touch, temperature, pressure, crude touch, all those things. It also plays a very important role in motor planning, PPP, that is programming, planning, posture. It is also playing a very important role in posture, planning, programming. It is also an important site for memory and emotion. It also plays a very important role in sleep wake cycle, and some of the sensory and motor coordination, language as well as speech. So these are some of the functions of the thalamus. These are some of the important functions of the thalamus. So now we'll study about the thalamic syndrome, or what happens if there is any problem or lesion in the thalamus. There might be chances of occurrence of thalamic syndrome. So we'll study about the thalamic syndrome. It is a very important question, usually asked for 5 marks. What happens here is there is blockage of the posterior cerebellar artery in the posterior ventral nucleus. You know that in the posterior ventral nucleus there are 2 types, ventro-posterior medial nucleus and ventro-posterior lateral nucleus. So that nuclei, both of those nuclei will be affected. There will be blockage of the posterior cerebral artery. So occurs due to thrombolysis. There will be blood clot in the artery, posterior cerebral artery. So what are the signs? Touch and pressure sensation will be decreased on the contralateral side. In the sense, on the opposite side, both the touch and pressure sensation will be decreased. The muscle tone will also decrease. There will be a weakness. Whole body becomes hypersensitive. If we touch a bit also, they'll act as if something great thing have happened. So whole body become hypersensitive. Effect of lesion occurs in the contralateral side. You have to remember this in the thalamic syndrome. If there is problem in the right side, you can see its sensations on the left side. If it has happened on the left side, you can see its sensation occurring on the right side. So it is on the contralateral side. Emotions also may be affected. There will be loss of sensation. Astereognosis means he is unable to identify the known object with the closed eyes. Then sensory ataxia, he'll be losing all his kinesthetic movements. Anosognosia means lack of awareness, like he won't be aware like what is taking place besides him. So there will be neurological defect, general illness, disability, so many problems you can see if there is thalamic syndrome, because it's one of the very important structure in the brain. So if there is even a single defect, you can see a huge drastic problems. So if there is on the lesion in the right thalamus, you can see the effect on the left side of the body. If there is lesion on the left side of thalamus, you can see the effects on the right side of the body. It is contralateral to each other and not ipsilateral to each other. So there will be overreaction for the pain. If even a small stimulus is given, there will be overreaction for the pain. Threshold will be reduced. The normal bearing threshold will be reduced. Even if you have touched a bit, he'll get a severe pain. He'll be having emotional disturbance, and he won't be able to differentiate between the heat and cold temperature environment. He won't be able to differentiate. So what is phantom limb? He is unable to locate the position of the limb. In the sense, if a person who is having like the amputated leg, like he have lost his limb, upper limb or lower limb or any part of the body, he have lost it during accident, and he have been amputated with the like plastic or like any other silicone devices. So what happens in the sense, he feels that even though he is not having the limb, he feels that he is having the limb, and he starts to get itchiness or like dryness around that area. He'll start to search. He'll be having an illusion like the limb is lost. So he'll be amputated, still he'll be having those irritations, all those things. So this is called as phantom limb. So hope you have liked the thalamus video. So in the next video, upcoming videos, I'll be bringing a lot of more chapters so that it might be a huge help to you. So please do like, share and comment. Thank you.